Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, Travis Bowman here with a video on the Neo Geo CD, specifically the Neo SD Loader mod for the Neo Geo CD. Now, if you take anything away from this video, anything at all, let it be this. I destroyed two Neo Geo CD consoles trying to do this mod. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but here I am sharing my experience with you guys to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, because this can be an extremely expensive problem to fix if you screw it up. Before we jump into anything else, let's talk about why would you want to do this to your Neo Geo CD. Okay, so the Neo SD loader is actually an ODE mod. ODE meaning optical drive emulator, the thing that reads the CDs. Basically, the idea is we're taking that out of the equation and replacing it with a device that can read your games off of an SD card. Now, there's two main reasons why we would want to do this with the Neo Geo CD. The number one thing is going to have to do with the CD loading times. The Neo Geo CD has been the butt of many jokes regarding CD loading times, and the Neo Geo CD is probably one of the worst consoles out there for loading your games. It's on a game-by-game basis. Some of them load faster than others, but nevertheless, this console is extremely guilty of having one of the worst loading times for games of any console. The number two thing actually has to do with region switching. So unlike many other consoles where you buy, like a Japanese game and there it is, it's just the Japanese game, it's on the disc. The Neo Geo CD is a little bit different in that regard because the console determines which version of the game you're actually going to get. So I've got the King of Fighters 95 over here. That's a Japanese copy of the game. And I've got a more recent game over here called Xeno Crisis. Now, with the Neo Geo CD, all regions are on the disc, but it's the console that determines what you're actually going to play. So the Neo SD loader actually has a really nice menu that will allow you to change your BIOS settings to boot to any region that you want. And the main reason to do that is because not a lot of Neo Geo CD games actually have some text to read, but some of them do, like Crossed Swords is a really good example, because as you're playing through the game, you have the option to go to a merchant and upgrade some of your gear. It's nice to be able to read what you're actually buying, so that sort of thing. So you can boot that game to the American version, despite the fact that I have a Japanese console here. So it's a really cool mod, man. I just love it when old technology gets renewed with new technology and they mesh together. It's one of the coolest things ever. So that's my main reason for wanting to modify my Neo Geo CD. Now, as I said in the beginning, I screwed up two consoles trying to do this on my own. It's a very, I would say, intermediate to advanced mod. You've got to open the thing up. You've got your ODE itself, and you have to put it on the motherboard. You actually have to fit it over an existing chip, and then you have to solder some wires to some different places and all that stuff. In theory, it doesn't sound like it would be a big deal, but trust me, my friends, it absolutely is. It is so awful if you try to do this yourself and you screw it up like I did. You don't want that feeling. You definitely don't want to be in that situation. So I bought this Neo Geo on eBay a few years ago, and it came with two controllers, the original power supply, and I actually got pretty lucky in that aspect, because these things are extremely expensive. I actually, did a best offer and knocked the guy down from his asking price, and that Neo Geo CD worked extremely well. It read all of the backups that I had, because Neo Geo CD games are extremely expensive, so it's actually pretty decent at running burned games. And there's that age-old argument of, is that a really good thing to do to prolong the life of my console? Yeah, probably not. It's probably gonna wear down that laser. But again, that's why we're taking this extra step into getting an ODE installed, so we don't have to worry about reading discs anymore. So I got the console. I had it for about a year. And, my friends would come over and we'd play some of those old fighting games like King of Fighters and stuff like that. And the loading times, man, especially for a game called The Last Blade and The Last Blade 2. I think that's probably one of the worst examples for those loading times. It's just so incredibly slow, and it takes forever to even get into a match. And then after the match is over, you got to do it all over again when it's time to select your new characters and stuff like that. So that's my main reason for wanting to upgrade to this Neo SD loader. So I went ahead and bought it. I watched 3 or 4 different, how-to videos here on YouTube, and it seemed like a project that I might be able to do. It would be a good challenge for me. And I made a huge mistake in thinking that. It was so bad. The biggest issue with this particular mod is you have to take the BIOS chip that's on the motherboard. There's several pins on that chip that is connected to the actual motherboard itself. This modification requires you to lift only one of those pins in order to solder a wire to both the pin and to the pad that pin was most recently connected to on the motherboard. And you can watch people doing this, and it might look a little easy, but what you're probably not getting is just how teeny tiny this chip really is. It's incredibly teeny tiny. And it's really, really overwhelming when you're trying to do this yourself. It's nerve-wracking. But I managed to do it the first time. I managed to get I managed to get the pin lifted, but it broke off. And that's the terrible part of this, is that we're dealing with a console that's like over 30 years old at this point. And like I said, it's too teeny tiny. It's incredibly teeny tiny small. So yeah, once that breaks off, you have a couple of options. You can get a Dremel and Dremel into the chip to try to get a little piece of that leg showing so you can have something soldered to it. And you'll see in these photos that I'm posting here that I even screwed that up. I used the Dremel and I got in there, but I mean, this is not a novice job. And I'm most definitely a novice when it comes to soldering. So yeah, my Neo Geo was out of commission. And you know what it's like when you have a collection of consoles that you're really, really happy with, and you look at it and there's that big gaping hole where that Neo Geo used to be, and it sucks, man. It really does suck. So I spent some extra money and I bought a second Neo Geo console on eBay, and this one was, not working. And I got it for less than $100, which is actually pretty good for just, the console itself. And I decided I was going to try to fix that, and then in turn try it again and try to get my Neo SD loader installed. So I took the Neo Geo apart and I was going to try to replace some of those capacitors that were in it, because apparently it wasn't powering on. I spent an hour and a half replacing all of the capacitors, and turns out after all of that hard work, it was just a resistor that needed to be replaced. And what do you know, the Neo Geo works just fine. Now, the issue with the new Neo Geo that I got on eBay is that the CD drive was not working the best, but that shouldn't matter because I'm trying to do this install for this ODE anyway. So I tried it again, and wouldn't you know it, the same exact issue happened. And at this point, I contacted a friend of mine named Cody, who is so much more experienced with this kind of thing, and he's so much more knowledgeable than I could ever hope to be. And I came to him basically begging him, like, please, can you fix this mess that I've made? And he did. He actually got both Neo Geo consoles working, surprisingly. And you'll see some of the photos of his work. It's super clean, and he did such an amazing job. And he's such a nice guy too. I was asking him, like, he put like weeks into this, off and on, trying to get these fixed up, in between work and stuff like that. So I asked him, what do you want me to pay you for this? I'm going to pay you for your time. Just tell me what number you want. And he said, I've never worked on a Neo Geo CD before, so that was a good experience, so that's fine. I'll just do it for free. And I was like, no, man, I can't let you do that. Do you have any interest in a Neo Geo CD console? Because, you fixed both of them. I don't have a use for 2 of them, so take one. At least, take one and use it and everything. So he did. We swapped out the disk drives, so he's got the good disk drive with no ODE, and I've got the bad disk drive with the Neo SD loader installed on my console. And to be honest with you, I am so happy about that. I've wanted this for months now. This is an epic saga that has finally come to an end, and I'm extremely glad to finally have the Neo Geo CD with the Neo SD loader modification. So now we got to ask the question, is it worth it to do? If you've got somebody that knows how to do this sort of thing and is fairly confident that they can do it, then I would say yes. It's really, really nice to have your entire library on that SD card. And to be honest, I'm only using a 64 gigabyte card. That's really all you'll need for all of the games, like all of them. And you don't have to worry about getting games from different regions if you want to play those, because like I said earlier, you can use that in-game menu to go and select whatever region that you want, which is really, really nice. And to be honest with you, man, I really love this console. You know, like I grew up in a time when this came out, I was still a little kid. You know, I'm 30 now, so I never even knew this thing existed until I was a teenager. And to actually have one with 2 controllers, by the way, is a really, really nice thing to have. And I mean, I love this controller so much. If you've never played with this Neo Geo CD pad before, I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if my microphone's gonna pick up that clickiness so well, but these clicky thumbsticks are incredible. It's like you're combining the idea of having an arcade stick and an analog stick, but you get that nice micro switchy clickiness. The buttons are really nice and big and responsive, and you've got to start and select. And honestly, that's all you'll ever need for the Neo Geo CD. I never got the chance to have an actual Neo Geo arcade stick. You know, that's a shame because they're very expensive, but to be honest, I couldn't imagine playing the Neo Geo CD without this pad. It melts in your hands so nicely. It's one of the nicest controllers and one of the most unique controllers that I've ever used before, and I just love it to death. So should you do this mod yourself? Unless you're extremely experienced, I would highly recommend that you don't do that. If you consider yourself a novice in soldering, do not do this. Just don't. It's such a risk that you take in screwing up this console, and like I said, I did it twice. And I'm extremely lucky to have at least one Neo Geo CD console. Okay, so what about the mod itself? Like, is it worth it to have that? Well, absolutely. I mean, the loading times are quite a bit faster. Some of them still take a few seconds, but to be honest, I mean, seeing that bar go across the screen as fast as it does compared to inching along, it's a night and day difference. The other thing I'd like to talk about is how this is actually installed. So you've got sort of an SD card extender in a way, and it actually shoots out the back of your Neo Geo. Back there where the air vents are, that's where the SD card is. And I've seen some people have more luck with this than others, but just the way that it's installed, and this is no fault of my friend Cody's who did this, but there's very little clearance up in that vent. So if you're going to take that card in and out, you might have a difficult time trying to get it back in because it's a very, very small area of real estate that you're working with there. So what I would recommend if you were going to do this, make sure you get that card set up exactly the way you want it before you put that card in there. Now, I know that's easier said than done, and I'll get to that issue in a second as well. However, I've had to do it. I've had to take the card out and then put it back in, and one time it didn't work. And so I had to actually take the lid off and get up inside of the Neo Geo and kind of finagle that little SD card slot so I can access it. It's very finicky. It's a very finicky mod. You know, it's very easily screwed up. So keep that in mind. If I'm not hammering this home enough, it's a very, very difficult mod to do. Other than that, there's an issue specific to the Neo Geo when we're talking about copy protection. Now, some of these games, they actually have copy protection built in right on the disc, and that's a big pain in the ass because, you know, the Neo Geo thinks it's reading a CD, but every once in a while, particularly with some of these King of Fighters games and I believe a game called Super Sidekicks, you'll be playing and it's just fine, and then all of a sudden the screen will go to black and you get a really nasty error message. Now, if you look this up, that's copy protection. So what can we do about that? Well, what you'll have to do is find each of the games that are having this issue, and you can find patched versions online, or you can try to patch them yourself. Now, from what I understand, patching these games yourself is quite an interesting process that's going to take some time and some knowledge, because it's not just like you use the IPS patcher or whatever to do it. You have to actually go in and mess around with the code, from what I understand, you know, modifying the code inside the game and all that good stuff, and I'm not skilled at that either. So just keep that in mind. So that's the reason why I had to take the SD card out, is because I was playing the King of Fighters 98, one of the best games on the system, and it seems to be right after the third or fourth match, the game will just freeze and I'll get that message. Extremely frustrating. Now, it doesn't happen with all of the games, it's just a handful of them, but that is something that you need to keep in mind, because if you want to get this all set up and never have to mess with that SD card again like I did, then you're going to have to take that into account. Now, you can find, you know, ROM sets for these Neo Geo games. You know, I'm not going to tell you where to get them, but if you search around, you'll find them. And you can also search around and find these Neo Geo CD games without that copy protection. We'll have that copy protection taken care of, written out of the game's code, so you don't have to worry about it. But I mean, I really love the Neo Geo CD. It's become one of my favorite consoles, just because it's so easy now to boot it up and just select a game. And another thing that's an added plus to this particular modification is the button combination that you can use to either go to the start title screen of your game or back to the Neo SD loader menu itself, which is super nice. You don't have to get up and turn off the console and turn it back on, because the console doesn't have a reset button. You have to power it off and then power it back on if you want to get into another game. So that's another added plus. That button combination, by the way, it's super easy to do. All you have to do is just use your thumb here to hold all three of these buttons down here, C, A, and B together. And I believe you press select to go back to your title screen of whatever game you're playing, and do the same thing with start to go back to the actual Neo SD loader menu. So one last thing about this Neo SD loader is that you can also press a button combination, start and select together, to go into the in-game menu and add some different, you know, game-specific modifiers like cheats and stuff like that. It's really interesting, man. I really love this ODE. It's one of the coolest ones that I've seen so far, and I just love the Neo Geo CD. There's no way that I could afford a Neo Geo AES or MVS, and that's the bigger version of the console that came out first, that deals with those large cartridges that were upwards of $200 back in the day, back in the early 90s. Now, there is a flash cart for that from Terra Onion that has been out for a while, but there was a very limited release, and as I understand, even when they came out with it, it was like $600. So the Neo SD loader at the time of this video runs for about 150 bucks, and in my opinion, I mean, to have all the games with whatever region you want, in addition to all those different pros, you know, like loading to the menu, in the in-game menu to do cheats and stuff like that, it's a no-brainer for me. I really have enjoyed this console, and I love how unique it is, and I love the experience that you get when you're playing it. It's like no other console. So there's my thoughts on the Neo Geo CD as well as the Neo SD loader. I hope you guys got some good information out of this video. If you're looking to do this yourself, I hope you are prepared to do it yourself, or if you just want to go ahead and have somebody more experienced do it. Like I said, this is one of the coolest consoles ever, and I'm really happy to have a working unit. That's all I can say about it. After a few months of some really bad times, I'm glad to have this all together. So big thanks to my friend Cody for helping me out and you know, teaching me too. I learned a lot about soldering, and to be honest, I considered myself to be a failure at soldering. However, I got a Super Nintendo Junior and a soldering iron, and I actually did an RGB mod that was successful, and I did it all by myself. So I'm really proud of myself for getting over this nasty soldering hump with the Neo SD loader, and I can say that I soldered something without screwing it up now, so that's great. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks for liking this video as well. You know, I play a lot of video game music. My channel's name is Travis Bowman Music, if you didn't notice that. And you know, I do a lot of fingerstyle guitar versions of all these classic video game tunes that inspired me to play music. And I would highly encourage you to check that out if you're into video games like myself, which if you're watching this video, odds are you're a video game nerd, man. If you're checking out a Neo Geo video. I also teach guitar, and I've got a Patreon for guitar lessons if you're interested in that sort of thing. Or if you're just interested in helping out the channel, that would be awesome too. I really appreciate that so much. And thanks for subscribing. I'm just over 3,000 subs at this point, and my channel's improving every single day. I really appreciate the support, and I guess I'll catch you guys at the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.